Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. It's Tuesday, time to talk about some new releases coming out this Friday, February 7th. There's around 450 albums coming out this week. I got 12 on my list for today. There's a bunch of links down below. You got links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you check all that out. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. Like I said in the intro, there's around 450 albums coming out this week. I'm only going to talk about 12 of them on the show, though, today, so if there's something I don't talk about, make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to grabbing. And like always, if you're unable to find these in your local brick and mortar stores, they should all be available online. I'll put links down below in the comment section for them. You can also always go over to the Vinyl Den store on Amazon. I got all the pre-orders on there. There's new releases, all sorts of cool stuff to check out. So I think one of the bigger releases this week is going to be this new album from Kendrick Lamar, GNX. So this actually came out in November of last year. It's a 6-studio album. It's going to run you around $33. There's a couple of different variants of this, including an indie exclusive blue version. So back in early 2024, Kendrick Lamar went on Instagram, announced that he had bought a 1987 Buick Grand National Experimental, that's where the title of the album comes from. I didn't even know what GNX even stood for before I started looking it up. This is the follow-up to his hugely successful 2022 album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, which I thought was a really good album. I had it in my top 20 that year. I don't think it's nearly as good as either Damn or To Pimp a Butterfly, which I think are two, absolutely. I would put those two albums in probably the top 10 as far as rap albums in the 2000s. But I have to admit, I have not listened to GNX yet. I know it's been out for a while now. I will get around to listening to it this week. I know it was met with pretty wide acclaim, hit number one in a bunch of different countries. So you got that coming out this week. You also got the Donnas Gold Medal getting reissued. Released in 2004, it was their 6th studio album. It's got running around $35. There's a couple different versions of this. There's a Gold Smoke version, which is going to be the version that's going to be available in all the record stores. I think it's the version that's available on Amazon also. And then there's a Gold Medal version, which I think was just exclusive to Experience Vinyl. There's only 300 copies that are pressed. That was the one I've got on pre-order. I've been waiting for this album to get released for a long time. Hopefully they'll also release Bitchin', which was the band's last album, which hasn't been available on vinyl in a long time. So Gold Medal and Bitchin' are the only two Donnas albums I don't have yet. If you're unfamiliar with the Donnas, they formed back when I think they're all in 8th grade for their school talent show. And they would go on to become one of the more influential punk bands of the late 90s and early 2000s. So Gold Medal was their second album on a major label. And this was the album where they got, I think, a little more polished, a little poppier than anything they've done before. I think they really started kind of losing some of that punk edge that they had earlier in their career. There's definitely some good stuff on this album. Like I said, it's one I've been waiting to get reissued for a long time. But like I said, hopefully they'll release Bitchin' next. And Gold Medal was met with pretty positive reviews. I think it hit number 75 or 76 on the Billboard 200. This album was produced by Butch Walker, who had just done Under My Skin with Avril Lavigne. So I think there's definitely some similarities between those two albums, at least the poppiness edge from both of those. But it's a good album if you haven't listened to it. There's also a new release coming out this week from the Dave Matthews Band. This is Where You Go in the Singles. So this is a new 2 LP release. It's going to run you around $35. This is a compilation of singles from across their career. They've got songs from all 10 of their tracks on here. Actually, 7 of them debuted at number 1 on the Billboard charts. So, really popular. I don't think people realize how hugely popular Dave Matthews Band was for a really long time. But this is being released in celebration of the recent Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. But Dave Matthews Band is one of those bands that I never really got into. I think that they do have some really good songs, but there was never like one album where I was like, I have to have this album. So, for me, I think a compilation like this is going to be perfect. I probably will grab a copy of that this week. And then you've also got the debut album from Michigander coming out this week. This is a self-titled release from them. It's going to run around $25. There's a black version of this. There's also a green marble version, which I think is I think that's an indie exclusive version. So if you're unfamiliar with who Michigander is, this is a solo project from Jason Singer. The band's been around since 2014 or 2015 from Kalamazoo, Michigan. So Jason does all the albums himself, and then he has like a touring band that goes along with him. Michigander's released 4 really popular EPs over the last several years. They're finally getting around to releasing their full-length debut album. They've already released 4 singles off this one. I like the direction they've gone with this, so I'm really digging the first 4 singles. I've listened to them multiple times. I'm gonna wait to hear the whole album before I decide to grab a copy of them. But this is one of those bands where I think this is kind of the future of rock music, and I think that when you when you look at all these bands that have been around for decades and decades, you think to yourself, how much longer are these bands going to be around creating high quality music? We need fresh blood to come through rock, and I think this is one of those bands that's doing it. There's also the soundtrack for the 1995 film Tank Girl coming out this week. And this is one of those instances where I think the soundtrack is better than the movie. I know it's like a feminine version of Mad Max pretty much, but I never really liked the movie. I always loved the soundtrack though. It's got running around $40. It's going to be on neon coral vinyl. The one thing I didn't know about this is the soundtrack for this movie was all put together by none other than Courtney Love, which I was really surprised by. I don't know what her connection was with the movie, why she was picked to put the soundtrack together, but it is a great soundtrack. You got songs on here by Hole, Bjork, Devo, Bush, Portishead, Joan Jett's on there, a bunch of other ones. Like I said, if you're unfamiliar with the soundtrack, definitely go check it out. The movie, like I said, it's become one of those cult classic movies, but I was never a big fan of it. Then you got the 10-year anniversary edition of Going to Hell by the Pretty Reckless coming out this week. Came out back in 2014, was their second studio album. It's going to be on gold and purple marble vinyl. It's going to run you around $80, which I know is a lot, but this comes in a really nice 32-page hardbound book. This was the album that really catapulted Taylor Momsen and the band to stardom. I don't think this is their best album. I think what they would do over the next couple of albums is better than this one, but there's a lot of stuff I love on this album. I think that this album is a lot better than critics said it was when it was first released. It was met with a lot of really mixed reviews, but it still did really well. Hit number 5 on the Billboard 200. I've already got a couple versions of this album, so I think I could pass on this anniversary one. There's also one of my favorite albums by the Black Eyed Peas getting reissued this week. This is The End. Came out back in 2009. It was their 5th studio album. 2 LP release. It's going to run you around $33. It was a huge success when this album first came out, and it was actually the band's first and only number 1 hit here in the U.S. There was 5 top 10 singles off this album. I think 3 of them hit number 1. Boom Boom Pow was a huge track that really pushed this album up the Billboard charts. And this was the album where the Black Eyed Peas really kind of finished their transition from this hip-hop group to more of like a pop EDM kind of sound. There's some really good stuff on here. I think Elefunk is a better album, but this one is just behind it in second place for me. I might grab a copy of that this week if I can get it on sale somewhere. Then you've also got Wildside, Under the Influence, coming out. This came out back in 1992 as their debut studio album. It's going to be on fire orange vinyl. It's going to run around $35. This is an album this is another one of those albums where I think what was going on in music in the early part of the 90s is why this album got really, I guess, overlooked by the mainstream. Because by 1992, grunge had really taken over and kind of really changed the face of rock music. This is an album where I think had it been released a year or two earlier, I think it would be, a lot better remembered than it is. Because honestly, I completely forgot about this album until it was announced. This is the first time it's been reissued since 1992. But it's another one worth revisiting if you haven't listened to it in a long time. There's also 2 releases coming out this week. They're both part of the Blue Note Tone Poet series. The first release is an absolute masterpiece. I'm really unfamiliar with the second one, though. The first one was Dizzy, Reece, Blues, and Trinity. So this came out back in 1959. It's got running around $39. Of course, all these Tone Poet releases are always mastered by Kevin Gray from the original analog tapes. They're pressed to RTI. They sound absolutely fantastic. Some of the best-sounding jazz albums that you can buy. So Dizzy moved from Jamaica to London when he was 17 years old and would become one of the more influential jazz musicians of the 50s. And when Donald Byrd and Art Taylor were on tour in 1958, they went through London. They sought out Dizzy. They ended up in a recording studio with him. What they recorded would end up being Dizzy's first album with Blue Note. The thing is that I love about this album is these are some guys that are just thrown together, but they sound like they've been playing together for years. But I think that really kind of shows to how great musicians that they all were. So I'm definitely going to grab a copy of that this week. And then I'm not familiar with this next one. This is Horace Parlan, Up and Down. It came out back in 1963. Same thing. It's all mastered by Kevin Gray. It's pressed at RTI. It's going to run around $39. Horace has worked with a bunch of great musicians over the years. I don't think I've ever listened to any of his stuff as a band leader, though. This is definitely one I'll stream and check out. He's got some great musicians on here. He's got Grant Green is on here. Booker Irvin is on here also. Like I said, I'm unfamiliar with this one, but I'll stream it and check it out. Another jazz release that's coming out this week is the soundtrack for the 1966 film Alfie by Sonny Rollins. So it's part of the Verve Acoustic Sound series that's going to run you around $39. These are always mastered from the original analog tapes. They're pressed at QRP. So this soundtrack is really kind of interesting. So it's arranged and conducted by Oliver Nelson, but Sonny Rollins has some great musicians that play on here also with him. He's got Kenny Burrell, Jimmy Cleveland, J.J. Johnson, Roger Calloway is on here also. This is one where I've never seen this movie, but the soundtrack is really good. It's definitely a different kind of jazz album, but it's definitely worth a listen if you're unfamiliar with it. The last album I got on my list today is Alien Ant Farm TruANT, or TruANT, I guess is the way it's like written, with the ant in capital letters. Released in 2003, it was their third studio album. It's going to run around $37. This is the band's follow-up to Anthology. Anthology, of course, was the huge album. Had their version of Smooth Criminal on there. It's the one song that everyone knows from Alien Ant Farm. But I will say, if that's all you know from the band, this is definitely an album to check out. I don't think it's as good as the Anthology, but there's definitely some good stuff on here. This album was produced by Dean and Roger DeLeo, who of course is from Stone Temple Pilots. You know, it was met with a lot of really good reviews, but commercially just didn't do what Anthology did, because this album didn't have that one big track on it. But like I said, if you're unfamiliar with Alien Ant Farm, go back and revisit at least their first 3 albums. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to grabbing this week. The only one I definitely have on pre-order is that Donnas album. You know, I might grab that Dave Matthews Band. I might grab that Michigander. I might grab that Kendrick Lamar. We'll see what I end up grabbing. I don't want to spend a whole lot of money this week, so maybe if I can grab some of them on sale somewhere, I might grab them. But let me know what you guys are looking forward to. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.